Good afternoon, students. Today we are going to start with the next topic, that is Darwin's theory of natural selection. So as we all know, Charles Darwin was one of the first scientists who for the very first time gave the theory of evolution. So Charles Darwin is called as father of evolution or father of evolutionary history. Now, Charles Darwin generally collected a number of plants and animal specimens, right? And depending upon the observation of this specimen, he generally gave the theory of natural selection. The theory of the natural selection was given or published in his book, and the name of the book so called was Origin of Species. So, Origin of Species was the name of a book in which the theory of natural selection was been published by Charles Darwin. Now, theory of natural selection generally is based on the three important factors. I mean to say, Charles Darwin theory is generally based on three important factors. Number one is generally called as natural selection. Second, survival to the fittest. And third one, struggle for existence. Natural selection. So, according to the Charles Darwin, all the living organisms have a competition in between themselves, right? All living organism or a group of living organism compete with each other in a threatened manner. So here, those organisms in this competition, only those organisms will sustain where the modifications are generally seen, right? Okay. Second, that is survival to the fittest. Those living organism or those plants and animal which is having an ability to survive in the nature or survive in the surrounding are fit to the nature, and those plants and animal which do not have an ability to survive will finally die or ultimately they will perish away. That is called survival to the fittest. So you can see in the nature there are certain biotic factors such as plants and animal which have an ability that they are fit to the environment because they have a survival value. But those plants and animals which do not have any survival value will ultimately die and they will not be perished in the nature. Struggle for existence. You all know that every living organism is generally having a struggle between themselves, right? Okay, so that struggle might be in between two similar species or in between two dissimilar species. That is called a struggle for existence. So there are three different types of struggle for existence. First one is called as interspecific struggle. Inter is two different, right? So a struggle between two dissimilar species is generally called as interspecific struggle. So example, a struggle between a horse, deer and cow for getting the grass, right? All three are of different species, cow, deer and horse, right? So interspecific struggle is a struggle between two dissimilar species. Second one, intraspecific struggle. Intra is similar. So the struggle between two similar species is generally called as intraspecific struggle, right? Take an example, struggle between cow and a cow, horse and a horse, and deer and deer, right? So horse and horse belonging to two similar species, cow and cow, deer and deer belonging to two similar species. So whenever there is a struggle between two similar species, it is called as intraspecific struggle. And the third one is environmental struggle. Environmental struggle is the struggle of living organism and its environment. So example, whenever there is a volcanic eruption, earthquake, flood, tsunami, etc. Right? These are all natural disasters. So we generally try to save our life against the nature. That is generally called as environmental struggle. So these are all the three major factors: natural selection, survival to the fittest and struggle for existence, on the basis of which the theory was given by the Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin theory of natural selection was widely accepted for a long duration of a time. But also this theory generally has some of the drawbacks or the limitation. The first one, natural selection was not the only factor responsible for the evolution. Correct? Natural selection was not the only limiting factor responsible for the evolution. Charles Darwin did not mention or explained about the useful and useless modification. He never gave an idea about the useful and useless modification. And third, he said about the abrupt changes or the slow changes which are taking place in an evolution. Next one is generally called Lamarckism. Right now, after Charles Darwin, the next scientist was Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, who for the very first time proposed the Lamarckism. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck proposed that the morphological changes or the morphological characters occurring in a living organism, right? Okay, morphological changes occurring in a living organism, and the reason behind the morphological changes is nothing but the human activities or the laziness between the living organism. This concept was generally called by Lamarck. Lamarck generally called this concept as principle of use or disuse of organ. Further, he said that the giraffe has generally increased his neck due to the browsing activity, that is browsing the leaves of the tall trees by raising their neck, right? Similarly, the shoulder of the ironsmith, right? The shoulder of the ironsmith were generally becoming more and more stronger due to the frequent hammering activity. Let's talk about the birds. Birds such as ostrich and emu, where the wings of the birds like ostrich and the emu have been become so weak due to no use, right? Also, legs of swan and duck were generally useful for the swimming, and the snake generally lost their legs by the habit or the modification of burrowing. So this all changes were generally called as the acquired character, and so he mentioned this theory, or he also called this theory as theory of soft inheritance, acquired character, or Lamarckism. That's what all about your Lamarckism. Lamarckism generally mentioned about the acquired characters which are being transmitted from one generation to the another generation. And the last one, a small topic that is called speciation. So we all know that living organisms have a wide diversity, right? Either it is a plant, animal, microorganism, we all belong to the different species, right? So formation of a new species of a plant or an animal is a major result of the evolution. Species, what exactly is a species? Species is a group of living organism which produces fertile individual through reproduction, right? So through reproduction, any kind of a organism or a group of organism can produce a fertile individual, that is generally called as species. So the formation of a species generally requires some or the other factors. The formation of species may grow in a specific geographical condition. Their food, their habitat, their reproductive ability, and the period is generally different. These are all the factors. One is the food, second is habit, third is reproductive ability, and the duration or the period varies among the species. However, genetic variation is also responsible for the formation of a species from an earlier species, right? Genetic variation is a major factor which is responsible for the formation of a new species from the pre-existing species. Genetic variation, any idea you have? Genetic variation means what? The variations among the genes which are being seen in the living organism is the genetic variation. And also similarly, geographical and reproductive isolation also lead to the formation of a species. This is called speciation. Thank you.